Okay, let's get started. I apologize running a minute or two late. I was hoping to try out this new piece of technology, but it isn't going to work because I forgot to load the iClicker software on it. So next time. My old laptop is destroyed, so I'm trying to figure out what I want to spend a ton of money on next. Let me get your attention, please. Okay, so I have about 95% of your attention. Okay, let me make an announcement first, for those of you who are not yet aware of this. It is ridiculously hot in this room. That affects me in exactly the same way that it affects you, except that I'm about 15 feet lower than the people in the top row, so I'm maybe a degree or two cooler. However, my head is boiling, and I need your help. So, what we're going to do today, we're going to continue talking about this topic of intertemporal preferences, and in particular, we're going to start talking about a very specific and very, very common phenomenon, which is called present. Whoops, sorry, that's and no, so I'm getting stuck between computers. We're going to talk about present bias preferences. People having preferences that are biased towards the present moment. Okay. We'll talk about, I'll show you some more evidence of preference reversals, and then we'll start focusing a little bit more on the math of how these anomalies, these preference reversals, violate the standard model, and then we'll look at a new model. And you're going to love this new model because it's like even simpler than the last behavioral model we looked at. It's like just plugging in a single additional Greek letter, and we'll be good to go. First, however, I'm going to give you some information that is not on your handouts, which is this. So you'll be getting your midterms back soon. I want you to write this information down on your handout so that you have it in front of you when you get your midterm back. The scores were good, and the distribution was good. Nobody really bombed this test. And for those of you who think that it was too easy, there are a lot of your classmates who don't agree. I think. In other words, we didn't have too many perfect scores. So this is the distribution. Remember, this is out of 80. Okay, so if you get a 70 or above, some kind of A, 60 to 69, some kind of B, and below 60, some kind of C. Let me now be really clear about something. These are hypothetical cutoffs, right? They're based on a single exam. They're based on sort of a loose examination on my part of the distribution. This is rough. I want you to have a very rough idea of where you're at so that you have some notion of whether you're studying hard enough, not hard enough, etc. If you form strong expectations on the basis of these numbers, don't blame me, okay? You should know, if you are rational, you should know that these numbers and where you fall in this cutoff is only loosely correlated with the grade that you can expect at the end of the semester. Every time I teach this class, every time I've taught undergraduates at this university, there will be students who come to me at the end of the semester and say, I thought I was doing better based on the grade distributions after the first midterm and the second midterm. That's an error. That is a cognitive mistake. Okay? You should not draw strong conclusions about what your final grade will be based on these numbers. Now I've said that once. I'll probably say it again after the second midterm. I hope this is helpful, and we'll talk about probability inference later in the semester, and you'll hopefully I'll be able to convince you even more strongly that is a cognitive error. Also, just because this is an elective and to some extent it's supposed to be fun, I'll just let the cat out of the bag. I almost never give anybody less than a C minus. What would be, in other words, a failing grade if you were taking this pass, not that pass, unless it's really obvious to me from the grade book that you just stopped trying. Okay, and I can see that. I can see it in your participation in problem sets and tests. So don't worry about it. Just do your thing. Okay. So let's start. I'm sorry. Does anyone have any burning questions about this? Yes. Yes, it did happen to mean 59 or below. Wow. And by that, you can conclude that, in fact, the temperature in my office is also very high. Yeah, thank you very much. Anything else? Did I mess anything up? Did I misspell hypothetical? Okay, good. Last time, one of the things we talked about, at the very end, I asked you guys this question about whether or not you would give up $1 out of $105 in order to be forced into sticking with a particular future choice, right? Remember, I gave you the choice between 100 in a year, 105 in a year and 2 weeks, and then I said, would you be willing to give up $1 to be forced to stick, to be committed? Gentleman with Apple. That's a pair, even better. Would you be willing to enjoy your pair silently? Otherwise, you just have to give me the pair. Oh, then just be quiet. Now we're only down to one policy alternative. So a number of you said that you would give up $1 to be committed, right? In other words, that you would pay for a commitment device, what we call a commitment device, in this case, having your choice removed. This is also something at the very beginning said that you would advise a client to do the same, to give up 25 or 50 basis points on a retirement investment fund in order to be committed to actually sticking with your retirement savings choices. This is an additional anomaly, right? So we've seen anomalies of the preference reversal sort where if payoffs are now, you'll make one choice, and if payoffs are all in the future, you'll make another choice. This is an additional anomaly that can't be explained by the standard model. So under the standard model, it should never be strictly preferable to restrict your future choice set, or in fact, any choice set, okay? And this was Daniela's point, is restrictions are bad. Taking things off the table is bad, unless those things happen to be problematic. But as long as we can assume that everything in your choice set is good, right? More money is good, restrictions bad. So here's a proof. I put it in quotes. It's not a rigorous proof, but it's just to get the points across so you'll see what I'm talking about. And again, it's proof by contradiction because that's the easiest way to do things. So consider 3 possible outcomes, X, Y, and Z. It could be absolutely anything. This could be red card, blue card, green card. Doesn't matter. Actually, let's have it be straightforward. Let's have it be cake, salad, and what's something that says yucky as salad and healthy? What? Olives. No, it needs to be healthier than that. Kale. Okay, so we're going to have cake and kale and cabbage. Okay? X, saliently, being cake. So suppose you were to choose X when your choice set is X, Y, Z, always, and Y when your choice set is just Y and Z. So in this case, I would say if you're faced with cake, kale, and cabbage, you always choose cake. If you're faced with just kale and cabbage, you always choose kale. Okay? But suppose that in addition to that, if you were asked to choose between being confronted with X, Y, and Z, cake, kale, and cabbage, or being confronted with just the choice set kale and cabbage, you would actually say, yeah, please take away the cake. Before I choose, please take away the cake. I just want kale and cabbage to choose from. What would that say, right? So this is a contradiction on never strictly preferable. This is someone who prefers to restrict their choice set. What would that mean? Okay, well, since X was chosen from X, Y, Z, in other words, X was chosen in particular over Y, it must be the case that X is preferred to Y. I'm sorry, it's not a squiggly greater than, but it should be. But since X, Y, and Z results in X, and Y, Z results in Y, then it must be the case, right? The result of X, Y, Z, being confronted with X, Y, Z is essentially the same as being given X, and being presented with Y, Z is the same as being given Y. So we've just shown that if you prefer, it must be the case because you preferred Y, Z to X, Y, Z, that you actually prefer Y to Z. Sorry, heat factor. I'm reversing the sort of logic of how I actually set this up. So if x was chosen from x, y, z, it must be the case that x is strictly preferred to y. However, if x is strictly preferred to y, since x, y, z results in x, and y, z results in y, if you prefer x to y, then you must prefer x, y, z to y, z, right? Because x, y, z is going to give you x, which is what you like, cake. Y, z is going to give you something of lesser value, kale, which you don't like. So you should never strictly prefer to restrict your choice set. Okay? So this result contradicts that. Okay? Does that make sense? Again, this is not a rigorous proof. It's just to give you the sense that if the thing you like best, if taking the thing you like best out of your choice set makes you happier, something is amiss in terms of the standard model. Because the standard model says the reason you chose x when y was available is because you prefer x to y. Why would you want x taken away? Okay? And the answer is going to be around, is going to have to do with present bias preference. It's because x is something that you would choose from the set x, y, z, but for some reason you would prefer that it wasn't what you would choose, right? Because you know that kale is going to be much better for you in the long run than cake. You would rather be set up with a commitment device, right? Forcing you to choose kale. Please, I'm going to sign a contract that says, here's $100. You give this to some person named Guido, and you say, here's $100. If I, in exchange for which I ask that you provide me with the following service. If I choose cake, shoot me in the head. Okay, that's a commitment device. Or you could just tell Guido to come take away the cake. Whatever. So demand for a commitment device, right, which some of you exhibited and which some of you advised, violates the standard model. Yeah.
So it sounds like this example is about the awareness of the lack of self-control.
It's about awareness.
So can you explain why this thought process is irrational?
So I'm actually not saying right here that it's irrational. I'm saying it violates the standard model.
Okay.
Is irrational as a subset of violates the standard model, because things can violate the standard model in ways that aren't necessarily irrational. Now, mind you, if something violates the standard model in a way that's not irrational, some rationalist microeconomists will have come along and extended the standard model to incorporate that. So the stuff we're typically going to look at, we're going to see actually does involve some kind of preference reversal or something somewhat screwy. It turns out, so you jump to that. It turns out that there is, in fact, a model that claims to explain this phenomenon, the demand for a preference for a restricted choice set, in terms that are not irrational, but it does so in a way that most behavioral economists find completely unsatisfying. And it's complicated, so I've set it aside for this course. Sorry, I have a much more straightforward answer to your question. That's a preference reversal right there. Right? Under one set of circumstances that shouldn't affect your preferences, you choose cake. Under another set of circumstances in which I let you choose your choice set, you choose kale over cake. Right? So that is, in fact, exactly a preference reversal. Okay. So that was just finishing up last time's lecture. So here's where I want to go next. I want to show you a little bit more evidence of preference reversal. So I showed you the 100, 105 thing for you guys and in some literature. Hopefully I convinced you it's real. Now I'm going to go into a little bit more detail. Timothy.
Yes. Could the reason you have a preference reversal because you're trying to change your reference point so that you're not doing the same lots of versions of cake?
So you want to change your reference point, take the cake off the table. Now your reference point is no cake, so you're not going to be as disappointed. I could buy that as an explanation. A simpler way of putting that, which I think captures the same idea, is that, and this is the model actually that these folks came up with at Princeton, is basically that in addition to the utility you get from the health consequences and nutritional consequences of the food, there's an immediate temptation value to the cake that's like this immediate thing. And there's one party that's saying, I'm going to get that temptation utility, but the cost to me in the long run is problematic. I would prefer to not be subjected to that temptation. Okay? And I think you can get to the same place using your approach. Okay. It's quite hard to prove intertemporal preference reversals in the real world. It turns out that there's still a lot to be done in the area of actually proving, either experimentally or using some kind of observational data, that people are engaged in preference reversals. Here's a lab experiment. Again, this is hypothetical stakes, and economists really like it when there's real money on the line, but such as it is, or such it is, rather. So we had 24 undergraduates, and they were faced with the following somewhat complicated set of choices. And actually, if you read the paper, you'll see that it was much more complicated than this. In the first stage, they were asked just sort of repeatedly for multiple rows, which of the following would you choose? In all of them, choice A was $20 now, and for each one, the choice B was $50 at some point in time in the future. So 1 week, 1 month, 3 months, 6 months. Okay? And then you go down, and you sort of check a box, because typically the way these experiments work is that they're then going to roll a dice or pick a number out of a hat, and you're going to get the payoff. Like, they're going to pick a number between 1 and 4, and you're going to get the actual payoff of the one they pick. Of course, in the case of hypothetical stakes, that they're not going to actually pay you off at all. But the idea here is that you have some incentive to write down the true answer of which you would prefer on each line. So just to give you an example, suppose that we see somebody who says B on each of the first 2 lines, meaning that, no, I'd be willing to wait 1 week for an extra $30. I'd be willing to wait 1 month for an extra $30. And then they start answering A, starting with line 3. So this says that I'm patient enough to wait a month for an extra $30, but I'm not patient enough to wait 3 months. Okay? So then in stage 2, they sort of take that answer, right? They take the row that you said, the first row where you said I'm not patient enough, and then what they do is they take that time delay, which in this case was 3 months, and then they start pushing that entire 3-month window out into the future. Okay? And they ask you, which would you prefer? How far? Basically, they're asking you how far in the future would I have to push all of that for you to become patient enough to wait. Right? So the first thing they do is they take this $20, $50 trade-off, and they push it 1 week into the future. So would you like 20 in 1 week versus 50 in 3 months plus 1 week? Right? And then it's in 2 weeks versus 3 months plus 2 weeks. 1 month versus 3 months plus 1 month, etc. Okay? So basically, and then you might, this stylized example, which I'm going to ask you to do a clicker question on. Suppose that you see A again on the first 2 rows, basically saying, no, if you push it out 1 week, I would still be impatient. If you push it out 2 weeks, I would still be impatient. But if you push it out as far as a month, all of a sudden I'm willing to wait. All of a sudden I'm willing to invest an extra 3 months wait to make those extra $30. Okay? So you start switching to B there. The way that I like to represent that did not improve things. The way I like to represent that, so it's really clear what's going on, is with a timeline. So basically, the choices that are being offered here, this is time, okay? And in the first set of choices, in the first stage, what you're being asked is this. Would you prefer $20 here, now, or let's call those months, or would you prefer $50 in 3 months? And if you choose 20, that's what you hear. And then they switch you to the second stage, and they say, okay, well, let's take that 3-month window, and let me ask you, would you prefer $20 in 1 month, or $50 in 4 months? And in this example, the person is switching and choosing 50. So this is exactly what I did to you with the 100, 105, except that they are shifting, they are taking this window, this 3-month window, and they're shifting it out to see when you switch your preferences back, okay? Now, The first thing I want to do is just to get you guys, and then they repeated that for all kinds of different amounts and different delays. A lot. I mean, this must have been really exhausting for the subject. Here's what I want to do, and while you're doing it, I'm going to start up iClicker software. Assume that the utility function is just you get 1 util per dollar, u of x equals x. And then we'll define delta as the 3-month discount factor. In other words, it's how much you discount. So the time period is 3 months long. So delta is how much you discount outcomes, how much more you discount outcomes over each 3-month period. So if the outcomes are what you have here, right, that you choose that the first A is on row 3 in stage 1 and the first B is on row 3 in stage 2, in other words, if it's these outcomes, I think I got that right, then which of these statements is true about delta? Basically, in other words, these are all asking you in what ways does delta vary in different situations. I showed you the math of how to do this last time, right? So the way that this is under the DU model, you just figure out where you are in time. Are you 1 period out? In one of these cases, you're going to be a third of a period out, and then 4/3 of a period out. And then you just take delta and raise it to that power, the power of the number of periods you are out, and that's your discount. That's your discount factor. Right? You guys all remember that? Hopefully enough of you do that when you put your heads together in groups, you can figure this out. So go ahead, and I will open up the iClicker software. Fire marshal's not going to like that. Now we can hear your conversation. Okay, do you guys mostly have an answer? You feel like you know what you're doing here? Or you feel like you know you don't know what you're doing? Okay, did the pair give you the boost that you needed to be able to? Excellent. All right, go ahead and enter your answers. Okay, I know there's more of you than that in the room. Let's do 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and okay, apparently a lot of people are out enjoying the weather. What did we get? All right, we have some A's and we have some C's. Why doesn't, let's see, so A and C differ. Oh, A and C are reversed. They're exactly reversed. Why doesn't someone walk me through an A answer? Someone who hasn't done this before but is feeling relatively confident of their math. Yeah. Yep. Next period.
Yeah, next period. So if you value less than 0.4, you're going to take a minus 8.
Okay.
And if it's more than 0.4, so I just look at the table and the cutoff is 1 month. After 1 month, you choose take it now.
Okay.
So that's my life.
Okay, remind me of your name? Gregory. So what Gregory said is, and he sort of rightly figured out, he sort of, he figured the test out, right, which is that since there's only one number, it must simply be a threshold, and I must have it in my mind that the preference reversal is determined by whether delta is above or below that threshold. So he didn't actually do any math, which is quick and clever. And what he said was, look, the size of delta, right, delta is how much you deflate the later outcome relative to the earlier outcome, because they're both 3 months apart. If you choose the earlier outcome in one situation and you choose the later outcome in another situation, it must be that your 3-month discount factor delta was smaller in the first situation and bigger in the later situation. In other words, that when the $20 was on the line now, you discounted the $50 more, that's smaller delta, and when in the second part, when the $20 was a month out, that you discounted the future $50 less than you had previously, which is to say delta bigger. Right? Point being that you discount the future more. These people discount the future more when the earlier payoff is now. Okay? And the implied per period discount factor delta looks like it goes down when outcomes are pushed out into the future. Sorry, looks like it goes up. All right. All right, so what did they actually find? What their results, they have a lot of results, so I'll just show you a few. I'm zeroing in here on the results when they asked people about a 3-year delay, right? So what they found was that when the $20, so this is 20 versus 50, when the 20 was available now, only 21% were willing to wait 3 months to make that extra $30. But as soon as they pushed the $20 3 months into the future, suddenly everybody's willing to wait. Okay? I'm not willing to wait 3 months if you're willing to give me the money now. But if you're going to make me wait as much as 3 months for the 20, suddenly I become willing to wait an extra 3 months for the 30. You have probably made decisions like this so many times in your life that doesn't seem strange. And I'm perfectly happy to say, yeah, that's normal and therefore in some sense not strange. I will tell you now that if you make big decisions in your life on this basis, it's going to hurt. If you're willing to wait from 3 months to 6 months to make a 250% gain, you should be willing to wait now. So just work a little harder at it.